morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we're going to be taking a look at a new Cryogonal card. And ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot to like about this Cryogonal. Principally, yeah, it's item lock. Item lock is back. Now, I know some of you like item lock, and I know some of you are less in favour of item lock. This isn't the most egregious we've ever seen, but it is back and it is there. Something to bear in mind. So, I should say this was revealed by the official YouTube channel, I want to say today, and it was translated by the lovely David Hochmann over at Rappelmann TCG over on Facebook. And starting off with the basics, it's got 90 HP, which means if you're in Expanded or we ever get a reprint, Level Ball has got your back. Now, it is actually a water type, and being a water type is really quite nice at the moment, because it means you're hitting weakness on Blacephalon, though you're not really doing a huge amount of damage, but it also means that you can use Brooklet Hill in order to get it out. It's a basic water Pokemon, so you can just use Brooklet Hill here to kind of set yourself up in the early game, and that's nice and lovely. I mean, you've also got some energy acceleration with stuff like Aqua Patch, but again, it's not really your biggest concern, given that you can already see from the screen it's single energy attack. As for the weakness to metal, it's fine. It will mean you get one hit KO'd by Duskmane Necrozma, if that's a big concern of yours, and it means that something like Registeel could add a little bit of damage and get a KO, but generally speaking, it's not a terrible weakness to have at the moment. But what does it actually do? Well, there's only one attack, but it's kind of a doozy. 1 water energy, 10 damage. Your opponent cannot play any items from their hand during their next turn. So they still get their supporters and stadiums and all of that, but they don't get any item cards. And this can be really good. This can be absolutely game-changing. Now, of course, this isn't the first basic water Pokemon where we've seen item lock. We had Seismitoad. Now, Seismitoad had a lot more HP, and it did 30 damage, but was for a double colourless energy and gave up 2 prizes. It looks initially like this might be nearly as good as Seismitoad, but one thing we need to point out here right off the bat, Seismitoad had Hypnotoxic Laser and Burbank City Gym. That was the key. Automatic poison with Hypnotoxic Laser, 30 between turns for poison rather than 10 with Burbank City Gym, plus a 50-50 chance of putting your opponent's Pokemon to sleep. Make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, it is way better when you've got Hypnotoxic Laser, Burbank City Gym. Plus, it did 30 rather than 10, so this isn't the return of Seismitoad. But we have had a Pokemon in the past that did this. Like, exactly this. It was Dialga G. Now, that did 10 damage, and it actually stopped trainer cards, which were items back then, or Stadium. So it did stop Stadiums as well. But other than that, it was 10 damage, and it was item lock. Now, I know it was for 2 energy, but back then you had energy gain. So it was essentially a single energy attack. But again, Dialga had something more. Dialga had Dialga G level X, and that made a big difference, because it meant you had a bigger attack, and also you turned off poker bodies. Essentially, back in the day, you had passive abilities, they were poker bodies, are always on, and active abilities, ones you actually have to use, they were poker powers. So again, you had something else that elevated that above and beyond. And that's the thing we need to get started and sorted at the beginning of this video. It is not just as simple as going, oh, Seismitoad was item lock, that was amazing. Or, oh, Dialga G had item lock, that was amazing. Both of them did have item lock, both of them were amazing. But there was a lot more to it than that. It wasn't that simple. There was more. But does that mean that Cryogonal is garbage? And the answer is no. Because we've also seen item lock like Trevenant in the past, which is only when you're active. So although it's really awkward to do without any items, there is a potential that your opponent plays something like a Guzma, and then all of a sudden they get you out the active and then no longer item locked. That is a possibility. That is something that they could do, and that could really, really hurt. This is just always on. And we have had a couple ways of getting rid of this. Pokemon Ranger would get rid of this, except Pokemon Ranger has rotated out. Oh, that's annoying. And similarly, we had Marowak, but Marowak has rotated out. Both of them we've still got in expanded, incidentally. So we had ways to turn this off, but they're gone. So once this is on, it's on. So the real question is, I suppose it's a two-part question. Part the first, are you doing enough damage to make this relevant? And part the second, if you're not doing enough damage to make it relevant, what are you doing? Can you buy yourself a little bit of time with this and then do something else with the time that you've made for yourself? Because in terms of damage, we're not stuck at 10. You add a choice band, you're up to 40. And then really your stadium of choice here needs to be Shrine of Punishment, puts 10 damage on each Pokemon EX and GX between turns. Now, against non-EXs, non-GXs, we are struggling here. Because Choice Band won't work and Shrine of Punishment won't work, and you really are stuck doing 10 damage per turn, and that's a little bit awkward. But against EXs and GXs, this can work. This can do enough damage to make it relevant. 40 damage per turn, plus 1 on each EX and GX between turns, I'm saying that's good enough. But what if you're not? And the answer is you've basically got two choices. Use this to help yourself set up in the early game, or just flat out disruption. So let's say you're playing one of those water decks that's playing Naganadel and Quagsire. Naganadel accelerates energy to itself and Quagsire moves energy to the active. Well, Naganadel is any basic energy, but Quagsire is just water. At this stage, we need to make sure that we've got our Naganadel and our Quagsire, so you can just use this to buy yourself a couple of turns, slow your opponent down, and then come in with your main strategy. But the other thing is, everyone's talking about Marshadow at the moment. And Marshadow gives your opponent a new hand of 4 cards. And if you drop into a 4-card hand, and then you go about using this, that could be really, really fun. Or maybe it's in the late game, and you know that your opponent is largely out of supporters, but they're going to be using a bunch of item cards. Use this. If you know your opponent's used all their Guzma, but they've still got a Power Pad, use this so they're just never going to end up drawing it. Maybe you use Reset Stamp. Look, Reset Stamp's going to keep coming up in a whole bunch of videos, right? It's just going to keep happening. Reset Stamp is a one-sided end for your opponent. They shuffle the hand into their deck, draw a number of cards equal to their remaining prize cards. So here, you use Reset Stamp to put them down to 1 or 2 in the late game, then start with Cryogonal. Especially against an EX or a GX, this can work. Because you see, Field Blower is one of my favourite uses for this. Because generally speaking, when you've got Shrine of Punishment down, your opponent is going to want to play a Field Blower to get rid of it. Now, it's not Dialga G. Dialga G would actually be able to stop them playing Field Blower or playing their own stadium. They literally have to rock something like a Faber here in order to get rid of it. They can still play their own stadium, but they can't play a Field Blower. So they're probably not getting rid of your Choice Band, and they're probably not getting rid of your Shrine of Punishment, and then maybe you even go a bit of disruption with stuff like Crushing Hammer here. And there's a few different ways to play this. The lack of damage against non-EX, non-GX Pokemon does worry me. I do think that is a legitimate concern. But there are going to be games where you're doing enough damage with Choice Band and Shrine of Punishment that you'll be fine. And there's going to be a bunch of games where you buy yourself a turn or 2 and you're golden. Or your opponent just needs 1 or 2 more item cards to win the game. Cryogonal comes out and they just can't do it. Maybe you can keep yourself there with Shrine of Punishment in play long enough to win the game, while your opponent just cannot get their Field Blower. That could work. It's a risky card, and it doesn't do a huge amount of damage, but it's item lock. And item lock has always been good. The other thing to mention here is this is water energy, not colourless energy, so it is really in a water deck. You can use rainbow energy, but generally speaking, this isn't the kind of thing you're going to be chucking in any deck willy-nilly. It's going to be in a water deck. But item lock is always good, so I'm giving this between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. I don't see it shaking up the format like Seismitoad did, like Trevenant did, like Dialga did. But I do think it's still item lock. It is still absolutely viable. But I would like to know what you think, ladies and gentlemen. So please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts. But please do remember the rule. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where we talk about games that don't have Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.